What's up, guys? XRP charts here with what's probably going to end up being a pretty detailed look at XRP and a little look at Bitcoin today. We're getting to a point now where we need to work out where this retracement's going, so we can look at some entries for some longs for some potential bounce that we can see in the future. If you've been following me on Twitter, you'll know that I've identified this region down here, sort of around anywhere between around the 33, 34 mark. The reason for that is as an area of confluence there for the 786 fib region, our long-term rising support that's been following us since before the big bull run, and our most recent triangle breakout, this blue line here. So what we tend to see, especially on a macro level, if we zoom out, when we have these breakouts of a long-term triangle, they often like to come back and retest to make sure that they are considered support. So that's one of the main reasons as well. We're also getting, none of these moves really seem quite impulsive yet for the next move up. If we have a look at the XRP BTC chart, we can see. I'm just going to 15 minutes. We can see that we got the pump at the horizontal support, I should say, there, and now we're currently just flailing. I mean, I still firmly believe that this whole move, this whole big recent pump, was based on XRP BTC bouncing at that region, and now you can see there's been very low volume and very little interest in the XRP BTC pair, and that's why we've seen that gradual decline on the XRP USD chart. Not everyone agrees with that. That's my take on it. I thought it was very coincidental that we bounced there, and then we finally broke out of the triangle resistance when that bounced, and not the other way around. So even if you are just trading the USD pair, you need to keep an eye on this chart. Once this has a big breakout and a big green candle, that's when you can start getting excited for the next move up. But until then, we have a major retracement down to this sort of 4,800, even a little bit lower in Sats. Yeah, so I think we may even just get like a wick down to that and bounce off, and that might be the catalyst for the next one. Or, yeah, I mean, it could go a bit lower. But what you need to do is, if you're watching this chart and if you're trying to curb your FOMO and you see a little bit of green on the USD chart, flick it over to the XRP BTC chart and see if XRP is doing it on its own or whether it's just following Bitcoin's movement. And as you can see by this declining chart, it's not doing anything on its own at the moment. It's just slowly bleeding out. And any upward movement is related to BTC dragging it up. So that's where we're at now. We're looking at a 5-wave move down here on the USD chart. We had 5 waves down here, and then either a triangle or a weird looking ABC there. So we can expect, if this does retrace down to here, another 5-wave move, making this a zigzag correction. What we saw it retrace last night from down here back up to the 618, so that could be the retracement done there. We may get a tiny little pump, maybe up around the 41.5 before we come back down. The thing to note though is that where we did spike is perfect diagonal resistance here between the two peaks. So we're also sitting below this diagonal here. So at the moment we've got that diagonal and that top diagonal as resistance, plus we've already hit the 618. Yeah, I mean there's a few things going on there that that are not in its favor for the upward movement. But like I've listed on Twitter, if we do close a 4-hour candle above this red dash line, I will definitely reconsider this correction. I don't want to see a 4-hour candle close above there, because that yeah, it really puts into question this scenario. But until that's crossed, then this is still very much alive as well. There's been a lot of talk about fractals, and that's fine. you know, I've made fractal videos before as well. They're fun to do. It's pretty good to do price projections and that kind of thing. But I mean, if you have a look at this whole movement, it's, you know, the XRP movement is always kind of that fifth wave extension where you get a 1 here and then a bigger 3, and then you just get this ridiculous, you know, 5-wave move up here. So where do we see that move before? Well, if we have a look on the daily, I mean, there's a case that, you know, we've got the same 1, 2, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I mean, there's a case there that this is the fractal as well, is that we're just going to slowly bleed back down as well. The thing that I'm looking at, and probably the way that I'm going to gauge whether the next pump is indeed a, you know, a true, you know, we're going to really blast through the roof. If we retrace back down to here, I'll just do it on this chart actually, so it'll make it a bit clearer. Do it on clean chart here. Right, so if we come down here and we're getting A, B, C, like that, and then we start to pump. Now, that would be awesome if we start to pump, because I'm planning on longing down there. But just because we pump doesn't mean that it's going to pump and go to all-time highs or even new highs, right? One of XRP's favorite patterns is a flat. So after we have these pumps, we usually get a flat. So a flat correction is an ABC into another ABC, and then a 5-wave down. Something like that. So if we just fill those ones in. Now this is very unpopular opinion. I know that not many people are going to like me for this, but this is traditionally what XRP has done after this kind of pump up. Right, and we saw it at the big 70 to 80 cent pump we had last September or whenever. So how do we know that this isn't just going to be a big wave 1, then wave 2, then wave 3, and then 4, you know, off into the 50s and 60s and beyond? Well, we're not going to know all the time, but I can tell you one thing, and that Elliott wave rules say that a wave 2 correction can't be a triangle. So if we use that, we may get in here even something like a little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not worried about these little corrections in here. This may even just be an ABC as well, up to here. But what I'm looking at is if we get some kind of correction on this big wave that ends up looking anything resembling a triangle, I'll be looking to close my long at a 1-to-1 extension from here to the top of the triangle, from the triangle up there. And this is where you get that bull flag, you know, using the pole height method, that kind of thing. It's because it usually indicates, if it's a triangle, that it's not going to be a further impulsive move all the way up. If it's a triangle in the middle here, it's going to be a 1-to-1 extension, maybe a little bit more. Flats have to retrace at least 90% of the highest peak back up here, but usually they go somewhere between 100% and 130%. So we could even you know, wick up to 50, which would be cool. It all depends on where we finish down here and where we start the top of this triangle, if that's what it forms. If we do a pump here and we just get a nice little ABC and then keep pumping, then it's game on. You know, we'll be looking for that next impulsive wave up, which should be at least a 1-to-1 of this whole structure. So, you know, we can go from there, but we don't need to get ahead of ourselves yet. What we've got to try and concentrate on is getting this this entry nailed. I mean, if you're just holding at the moment, sure, just hold. You can do that. But for people who are day trading and scalping and want to try to some leverage longs or something, you want to make sure that your entry is really precise. So we've got to look for those regions to get the good entry. Yeah, once we work out what that correction is in the middle, I mean, it could just blast right through that section and totally take this flat correction off the table. I just want to show you just quickly, if we go back to a 4-hour chart, I'll show you what I'm talking about with the correction. So here, after the big pump, we've got an A, B, C, A triangle in here, right? And then we get a 1-to-1 extension up that way there. It's somewhere in that sort of vicinity, right? So that's what we're looking at there. This then went boom, 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 another 5 waves down, and then if we zoom out even further, we can see that this formed another flat correction within itself. A, B, C, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a pattern that is very, very popular after a big pump that has a 5th wave extension like we've just seen. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So look, I'm not saying it's definitely going to be the case, but I can guarantee you that if it does form a triangle there on this sort of macro scale like this, I'll have no hesitations at closing my long at the recent top there. At least take some profit and then maybe try and ride up a little bit higher. But yeah, if we don't form a triangle and we're pumping, then it'll look better for at least, well, what do we do here? Somewhere around, if we go like that. Yeah, the minimum will sort of be the around the 55s at the bare minimum. So if we're doing oh, I've got those turned off. Where's the 168? Yeah, you could be looking at, even up to 60 if it's another big wave up. But like I said, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to just get the entry right first, and then we can just let our longs ride, and then make decisions once we see what kind of correction we get there. But you've got to keep an eye on that from there. Now, if we go back to our chart that we've been using for the last few days and we zoom out, and just ignore all the lines in there. But if we look at on the log scale here, you can see we've got this channel that's been respected. We dropped out of it here, became resistance. We got back in it, support. Now we've just hit the top of it, resistance. If this flat comes to fruition as well, it'll likely smack the top of that channel and then could drop back down 5 waves again. That's the flat correction possibility. But yeah, like I said, I hope this thing does pump. It'll be fantastic. For the moment, let's look at BTC. What have we got here? Oh yeah, that was the chart from that we said what we didn't want to be in this area, and what happened? We absolutely didn't want to be in there, and we had that huge big dip. So we're looking at BTC now. And we're sort of getting these, lower highs there. There seems to be some consensus that we're going to get a drop back down to here to form some type of consolidation triangle. Then probably up, down, and then out of the top side will go. So if we're looking here and we do get this, and like we said, XRP is currently just moving on the back of Bitcoin. So if we do get a drop down here and we get down to this sort of 72, even if we take down there, it's around the 7200, and on the XRP BTC we get down around that 47, 4800. A simple multiplication of that puts us in around this 33 and 34 area as well. So there's a couple of things that are lining up there. I just said on Twitter we do need to start seeing a drop here, with possibly within the next 24 hours. I mean, if we extend out here to the 23rd of May, I mean, it's sort of getting a little bit too far out. I'd like to see a drop in the next 24 hours for sure, for me to be really confident on this target. So we'll just see how the next day plays out. But yeah, keep your eyes on BTC and also that XRP BTC pair, because I think it's really important to identify the next pump. We should start to see XRP BTC really rip, and hopefully it's in around this region here. So we'll know more about this target. The closer we get to it, we'll be able to, if we do break below this one here, then we'll be able to start doing a little bit more detailed projections of where we're going to get to. But if you're going to do any leverage longs or even any spot buys, we'll probably look at, after we've identified this retrace, at laddering in on this last leg, because it's quite easy for us to get a truncated or a short wave 5 here, that may even coincide with the top of this peak over here. So we've just got to be smart and just don't try and go for the big win, and just ladder in, because this thing could take off really quickly, regardless of if it's going to be a new impulse wave or we're just going to do another corrective wave up. The risk to reward, I mean, we're looking at from 33 cents back up to 48. It's it's essentially this whole move all over again, which is, yeah. And if you didn't take profit at the top where we said at 45 cents and then 47 cents, you've just basically wasted the whole move down for making some good money. So this might be your next chance to have another go. So all right, I hope that helps, guys. But yeah, keep an eye on that triangle in the next week or two. That'll be the deciding factor for me on if we're going to the moon or if we're just going to the top of the channel. Cheers, guys.